commitment to putting Southeast Texas first means getting answers to your legal questions. On Wednesday afternoons, we ask the judge. And this afternoon, we are joined by Judge Courtney Arkeen from her courtroom there in Orange. Judge, good to see you.
Great to see you too, Jordan. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Appreciate you making time. Some good questions. We'll start with one from Marie, who says, I live in a senior apartment complex in Beaumont, and I went without AC for almost 45 days because the complex ignored my service request. Is there any legal action available?
Well, Jordan, I'm going to assume from the tone of her question that it's actually been fixed. And
Right.
so a landlord in Texas has to provide a habitable place to live. If it's uninhabitable, then that can be a ground to terminate the lease agreement. And I believe an AC and our temperatures would probably qualify for that. But there are certain requirements that you have to meet. You could have the repair fixed yourself and then deduct those expenses from your rent. But you would also have to provide written notice to the landlord that these were the problems. This is how you're going to fix it and other statutory requirements. And I'm just unsure as to whether or not she did that.
Right. But at least it does sound like it's been resolved, which is good, because otherwise
Yes.
you'd be sitting and suffering with these temperatures in the 90s today. All right, let's get to a second question from Ann, who wrote in saying, my grandson put a deposit on a house, $1,000. They did a walkthrough, a rental here, and noticed that there were a few bugs on the floor alive. He put out bombs, and the landlord had an exterminator come and spray. The next day, my grandson and them, they went back to the house, and they noticed there were hundreds of dead and alive bugs. She goes on to say it was just a real mess. So he contacted the landlord asking for his deposit back, and no response for the landlord as of 4 days now. Can he get his money back?
Well, I'm going to assume from the tone of this question as well that this is like a rent deposit, not some sort of earnest money to purchase a home. So if it's rent, it's going to be determined by the terms of the lease agreement. Now, in Texas, landlords require a deposit in case there are any future damages that they need to fix, or if you skip out on the last month's rent. But by law, they cannot refuse to return that deposit without giving a valid reason. So again, I would send notice and see what their response is.
Yeah, obviously, if we're reading it right, it sounds like he's not ever going to move into that house, understandably. Final question from Kevin, who says, the law says that a vehicle needs a passing inspection prior to selling. It states that it's the seller's responsibility. Does that mean the seller has to pay for any repairs needed for it to pass inspection, or does it even matter who pays as long as it has a passing inspection?
It doesn't matter who pays as long as it has a passing inspection. In Texas, the only way you can get it registered is if you have a passing inspection that has at least 1 month left on it when you go to register the vehicle. So you have it inspected, it's $7. There's no requirement as to who has to do it. I mean, I suppose that could be part of your negotiation when you sell the vehicle, but it does have to be registered with a passing inspection.
So somebody get it done.
Somebody pay the $7.
That's right, if you want that transaction to happen. Judge, good to see you this afternoon.
Great to see you too, Jordan.
Appreciate your time. Folks, if you've got questions for the judge, just go to 12newsnow.com/askthejudge, and there's a form to fill out right there.